My name is Aurora Hastings, and I'm 20 years old. Today, I'm going to tell you how the man my mother married almost killed me over a college fund that was never his, and how the gift my father left me survived even when I wasn't sure I would. But before I do, I need you to understand something. This didn't start with the bat. It started with a man who died at 41, and a promise my mother made over a stack of papers she didn't fully understand. My father collapsed in the kitchen when I was 10 years old. One moment he was rinsing out a coffee mug, the next he was on the tile, eyes open but empty, an aneurysm. No warning, no time to say goodbye. One second I had a dad, the next, the paramedics were covering his body and my mother was making a sound I had never heard before and never want to hear again. He hadn't left us rich, but he'd left us something, a small life insurance policy, some careful investments. Enough that, when it was all sorted, there was roughly $50,000 earmarked for my future. For me. Mom, her name is Diane, sat in a lawyer's office with red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands, while my father's attorney, Mr. Harrison, explained the trust. The money would be held in my name. It would grow with interest. Mom, as my guardian, would be able to access it for my welfare until I turned 18 or enrolled in college. After that, it would be mine. "It's his last gift to Aurora," Mr. Harrison said gently, pushing the folder across the desk, "so she can go to school without being crushed by debt." Mom nodded and whispered, "I'll protect it, I swear." For 5 years she did. It was just Mom and me in a small house that always smelled faintly of disinfectant and mint toothpaste from her job as a dental hygienist. She worked long hours. I did homework at the kitchen table and pretended the silence didn't feel like an empty chair across from me. Grief settled into the walls like another piece of furniture. We learned to live around it. Then, when I was 15, Mom met a man at a charity auction. His name was Lawrence Mitchell. He sold medical equipment, wore expensive-looking suits, and knew how to make people feel like they were the only one in the room when he talked to them. He bought Mom a glass of wine. He bought me a book about women in science the second time we met him, as if he'd somehow overheard every conversation I'd ever had with my guidance counselor. He was polished, confident, prosperous, or at least that's how he framed himself. "You're lucky," my mother's coworkers told her. "A good man, steady job, no drama. After everything you've been through." I watched her posture change when he was around. Her shoulders a little straighter, her laughter easier. After years of living with someone who looked like the life had been wrung out of her, I wanted that light back in her eyes. So when she said they were getting married after 9 months of dating, I swallowed my unease and smiled. "If he makes you happy," I told her, "I'll figure out the rest." Lawrence moved into our house. With him came new furniture, a bigger TV, a car with heated seats. His 11-year-old son, Tyler, started spending every other weekend with us. Tyler was quiet and awkward, always watching his father the way some kids watch thunderstorms, measuring the distance between lightning and thunder. My best friend, Kennedy, hated Lawrence on sight. "He's too smooth," she said in 7th grade, leaning across our cafeteria table, like a salesman in a movie who's definitely hiding something. "You're dramatic," I told her. "Maybe, but his smile never reaches his eyes, Rora. That's not nothing." I wanted Mom to have a chance at happiness more than I wanted to interrogate every instinct Kennedy had, so I ignored the prickling worry and told myself I was being paranoid. For a while, things were fine. Lawrence didn't try to play dad with me. He didn't insist I call him anything other than his first name. He didn't get overly affectionate or overly distant. He was just there, a presence at the head of the table, a man whose coffee mug appeared next to my mother's every morning where my father's used to be. The first flags were small. Lawrence would glance at receipts and say, "Diane, do we really need to spend this much on groceries?" Or, "You're spoiling Aurora. That kind of thing adds up." He talked about tightening the belt, even though his Harley-Davidson catalogs were starting to pile up on the kitchen counter and new cufflinks appeared on his wrists for no reason at all. When he started pushing to merge their bank accounts, Mom resisted for about 5 minutes. "It'll just be easier," he said. "One household, one set of bills. I'm good with money. Let me take some of the burden off you." She wanted a partner. He wanted control. Those two things can look dangerously similar if you tilt your head the right way. She agreed. By then, I was 17 and already the kind of person who tracks things. I checked my grades obsessively, tracked my scholarship deadlines, counted the hours I spent studying. Mr. Harrison had set up online access so I could monitor my college fund balance too. Not to touch it, just to see it. Every couple of months, I'd log on and stare at the numbers, feeling oddly comforted. My father's last gift. Still there, still growing. Until one afternoon, it wasn't. I was at the public library, taking a break from SAT flashcards. On impulse, I opened my laptop, logged into the account, and felt my stomach lurch. The balance had dropped by $5,000. I blinked, refreshed the page, checked the account number 3 times. Same result. For a long moment, all I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then I called Mr. Harrison's office. His assistant Beverly pulled up the records. "There was a withdrawal 3 weeks ago," she said, "authorized by your mother as your legal guardian. The reason listed is educational expenses." My eyes swept the library's fluorescent lit ceiling as if the answer might be written up there. "Educational expenses?" I repeated. "I go to public school. My textbooks are free. The ACT prep course cost $250, and I paid half of that with babysitting money." Beverly hesitated. "I can't see the itemized details, Aurora, just the authorization and the category. You'll need to talk to your mother." I did. That night, when Lawrence was supposedly working late and Tyler was at his mom's, I cornered her in the kitchen. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "why did you take $5,000 out of my college fund?" Her hands stilled on the dish she was rinsing. She didn't turn around. "Oh, sweetheart, that covered your ACT course and some campus tours we've been planning," she said lightly. "You know how things add up." "We haven't gone on any campus tours," I said, "and the ACT course didn't cost that much." She turned then, water still dripping from her fingers, eyes a little too bright. "There were other things," she said. "Your tablet repair, extra supplies, a few medical bills. You don't need to worry about it, Aurora. It's still your money. We'll make sure it's there when you need it." She was lying. It wasn't just what she said, it was the way she said it. Her gaze sliding off mine, her shoulders tightening. I recognized that posture. I'd seen it in myself every time I pretended I was fine when I wasn't. I opened my mouth to push, to ask for receipts, for specifics, for anything concrete. Then I saw the faint tremor in her hand and the tired lines around her mouth and felt something buckle inside me. She'd already lost one husband. She was terrified of losing the second. So I swallowed my questions like broken glass and nodded. "Okay," I said quietly, "if you say so." That was my first mistake. Over the next 6 months, I checked the account more often. Once a month at first, then every 2 weeks, then every few days. Another 3,000 disappeared, then 2,000 more. Each time when I asked, Mom had a new set of vague answers. Test fees, doctor's appointments, unexpected necessities. If I pressed for details, she'd grow defensive, then tearful. It became easier not to ask. But the numbers on the screen didn't care about her tears or my guilt. They just kept going down. One night, I sat at my desk with a spiral notebook and started writing. Every expense she mentioned, every actual cost I could verify. Dates, amounts, what she said, what I knew. When I finished, I added the numbers at the bottom and stared at the total. It didn't even come close. By the time I realized more than $38,000 had slipped out of that account in under 2 years, something in me went cold. This was not things adding up. This was not little expenses here and there. This was theft. And whoever was doing it was using my mother's signature to make it look legitimate. I closed the notebook, slid it into my backpack, and made myself a promise. I wasn't letting another dollar vanish without a fight. I didn't confront anyone right away. I wish I could tell you I stormed into the living room that night, slapped my notebook down on the coffee table, and demanded answers. That I was the kind of girl who went straight from suspicion to battle. But I wasn't. I was the kind of girl who double-checked everything 3 times before saying a word. So I started investigating. Quietly. I looped Kennedy in first because if there was anyone in the world who could weaponize a spreadsheet, it was her. We were in her bedroom, sitting on the floor with my notebook between us, and an open bag of pretzels abandoned at our side. "You're sure these numbers are right?" she asked, tracing one of the columns with her finger. "Yes," I said. I triple-checked the balances with the online statements and Mr. Harrison's letters. More than $38,000 is gone. Mom keeps saying it's educational and medical, but the math doesn't work. Kennedy leaned back against her bed, her jaw tight. "Okay," she said slowly. "So either your mom is terrible at basic arithmetic, or someone is bleeding your account dry and using her as cover." The idea made my stomach twist, because there was only one person in our house who suddenly wanted more authority over the money. "Lawrence," I whispered. Kennedy didn't say I was being paranoid this time. Instead, she picked up her phone. "I'm calling Stephanie." Stephanie is Kennedy's older sister. She works in financial services and has the kind of calm, sharp gaze that makes you want to confess your credit score. Within a day, we were sitting around their dining table, my father's trust statements spread out next to a small stack of documents I'd managed to quietly borrow from the home office. Credit card bills, loan summaries, things Lawrence left carelessly in unlocked drawers because he didn't think anyone in the house would understand them. He wasn't wrong, not until now. So, Stephanie said, sliding on her reading glasses, you want to know where your father's money went? I nodded, palms sweating. She started sorting, matching dates on my trust withdrawals to dates on Lawrence's statements. The more pages she turned, the more her expression hardened. This, she said finally, tapping the table, is not your mother accidentally overspending on school supplies. She pointed to a charge on one of Lawrence's cards. Harley-Davidson dealership, $22,000. The same week you had an $8,000 withdrawal marked as educational. My throat went dry. She flipped to another page. Diamond necklace, $4,000. High-end steakhouse, $800. Designer clothing, multiple charges. Every time the trust account loses a chunk, his cards show something shiny and unnecessary. She looked up at me, eyes fierce. Aurora, this is embezzlement. Your stepfather has been using your college fund as his personal lifestyle subsidy, and your mother has been signing off on it. The words landed like a punch. My mom wouldn't, I started, then stopped, because I had the paperwork in front of me, and denial is hard to maintain while staring at your mother's signature next to withdrawal approved. Stephanie softened a fraction. She might be in denial, she said. She might be manipulated, but her name is on these forms. Legally, she's complicit. What do? I whispered. You protect what's left, Stephanie said. You get your attorney back involved. And you stop treating this like a family misunderstanding and start treating it like theft, because that's what it is. That night, I called Mr. Harrison myself. He sounded older than I remembered, his voice raspy through the phone. I've been troubled by the pattern of withdrawals as well, he admitted. Your mother keeps listing educational and medical costs, but when I request documentation, I receive vague explanations or nothing at all. Can you stop it? I asked. Can you freeze the account? Not entirely, not until you're 18, unless we can prove the funds are being misused. The trust gives your mother discretionary access for your welfare. This isn't for my welfare, I said, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles hurt. My stepfather is buying motorcycles and jewelry while my father's money disappears. There was a long pause. That, he said carefully, is a serious allegation. Do you have evidence? I looked at the piles of papers on my bed. Statements, receipts, my obsessive little notebook. I'm working on it, I said. Then keep records, he told me. Make copies of everything. If there's misconduct here, we will act the moment you're legally able to assert your rights. In the meantime, be cautious and be safe. Safe. Funny word looking back. For the next few weeks, I did exactly what he said. I copied statements when I could get to the home office computer. I took pictures with my phone when I couldn't print. I kept everything in a folder at Kennedy's house because some part of me knew that if Lawrence or my mother found it, it would all disappear. Every new piece of paper painted the same picture. Lawrence spending like the money would never run out, and my trust account shrinking like an ice cube on hot concrete. 8 weeks before my 18th birthday, I logged into the online portal and saw the new balance. $12,000. Out of 50. My father's last gift to me had been stripped down to less than a quarter of its original value. Something inside me snapped, not impulsive rage, but a cold, clear line. Enough. I printed every relevant page. Trust statements, transaction histories, the worst of Lawrence's credit card bills. I added my notebook and the photos from my phone, arranging them in neat, damning rows. Then I waited for the first Saturday when Lawrence was supposed to be away at a sales conference. Tyler was with his mom, and it would just be Mom and me in the house. The morning felt deceptively normal. Sunlight through the blinds, the smell of coffee, the low hum of the dishwasher. I spread everything across the dining room table, the same place we'd eaten dinners after my father died, the same smooth wood he'd once rested his elbows on while helping me with math homework. The contrast made my skin prickle. Mom came in carrying a basket of laundry, humming under her breath. She stopped short when she saw the paper. Aurora, what is all this? She asked, her voice already fraying at the edges. My future, I said, or what's left of it. I pulled out a chair and sat. My hands were shaking, but my voice somehow stayed level. We need to talk about Dad's college fund. Her face drained of color. This isn't a good time, she murmured, setting the laundry basket down as if it suddenly weighed 100 pounds. Can we do this later? When is a good time to discuss nearly $40,000 disappearing? I asked. I've been keeping track, Mom. The withdrawals, the explanations, the actual costs, they don't match. She glanced at the papers, at her own name signed on withdrawal forms, at the Harley purchase circled in red ink. It's not what you think, she said quickly. Lawrence had some temporary financial issues. His ex-wife increased his child support. There were debts from before we married. It was only supposed to be a loan. He promised he would put it back. With what? I demanded. There's no back to put it from, Mom. He's using my father's money to fund his lifestyle. Motorcycles, jewelry, steakhouses we never even ate at. This, I pointed to the statement with the $22,000 charge. This is not a temporary inconvenience. This is theft. Her eyes filled with tears. Don't say that, she whispered. You don't know what it's like, trying to keep a marriage together. He said he would make it right. That money was for my education, I said, my voice shaking now too. Dad died and still managed to take care of me. You promised you'd protect his gift. Instead, you handed it to a man who treats it like his personal ATM. I did it for you, she insisted, her voice rising. For this family. Lawrence was under so much pressure. I am this family, I shot back. I am your daughter, and you let your husband steal from me. Silence fell like a dropped plate. For a second, we just stared at each other, both breathing too fast. Then I said the words that shifted everything from simmering tension into open war. I'm turning 18 in 2 months. I'm going to Mr. Harrison. If I have to, I will go to court. I will tell them exactly what the two of you have been doing. Her hand flew to her mouth. Aurora, please, she pleaded. If you go to the authorities, they'll charge Lawrence. They could charge me. We could lose everything. We already have, I said quietly. We just pretended not to notice. That was when I heard the garage door. A low mechanical rumble, the sound of fate rolling closer on metal tracks. Mom's eyes widened. He wasn't supposed to be back until tonight, she whispered. The interior door clicked open a moment later. Lawrence stepped into the house in his usual uniform, pressed shirt, expensive watch, faint smell of cologne. He took 3 steps toward the dining room, stopped, and took in the table. Bank statements, credit card bills, receipts, a notebook full of accusations written in my careful, furious handwriting. His expression didn't explode, it condensed. His eyes went flat and cold, like a pond freezing over. What's going on here? He asked. Mom swallowed. Aurora is upset, she said weakly. She's been going through the accounts and she... I'm not upset, I cut in. I'm informed. Slowly, deliberately, I slid one of his credit card statements across the table toward him, next to the printout of the matching withdrawal from my trust. The Harley, $22,000. Educational expense. I know what you've been doing, I said. You and my mother have drained almost $40,000 from my college fund for your toys and your dinners and your debts. I have copies of everything. When I turn 18, I'm going to Mr. Harrison, and then I'm going to the authorities. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he smiled, a thin, humorless stretch of his mouth. You've been rifling through my private financial documents, he said softly. In my house, using my electricity, eating food I pay for. That trust isn't your retirement plan, I said. It's my father's money. It was never yours. His smile vanished. Color rose in his face, a slow, ugly flush. You think you're clever, he said. You spoiled little brat. You really believe anything under this roof belongs to you? It does, I said, legally. I am this household, he snarled. Your mother and I make the decisions. That money is part of our future. Hand over those statements. No, I said. He took a step closer. I said, he repeated, voice dropping. Hand them over. I'm not giving you anything, I replied, forcing myself not to flinch. If you touch these papers, if you try to destroy them, I'll call the police right now and tell them exactly why. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time, not as a quiet, grieving girl in the background of his life, but as an obstacle. His gaze flicked to the sliding glass door, to the Louisville slugger leaning in the corner, and then something in his eyes changed. He moved toward it. Lawrence, Mom said sharply, panic spiking in her voice. Don't! He didn't look at her. His hand closed around the bat's worn handle, and he turned back to me. What do you think you're doing, Aurora? He asked softly, taking the first slow step in my direction. He took another step toward me, the weight of the bat dragging slightly against the floor. Not enough to make a sound. Just enough for me to hear it in my bones. Mom's breath hitched. Lawrence, put it down. Please, don't do this. He didn't even glance at her. His eyes were fixed on me. You think you can threaten me in my own home? He said, voice disturbingly calm. You think you can hide behind some little stack of papers and ruin my life? I'm not ruining anything, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady, even though my pulse was pounding in my ears. I'm protecting what's mine, what my father left me. He laughed then, cold, low, almost amused. Your father? He scoffed. Your father left a mess your mother and I have been cleaning up for years. You want to talk about money? I've paid for this home. I've paid for this life. And you, he lifted the bat an inch, are about to learn what real consequences look like. The moment stretched. I could feel the air thinning around us. This is your last warning, I whispered. If you take one more step. He took it. I grabbed for my phone, but he was faster. The bat swung before my fingers even reached my pocket. There isn't a sound in the world like bone breaking from the inside. It's not a crack. Not at first. It's a wet, crushing thud that detonates through your entire rib cage before your mind can process why you suddenly can't breathe. My vision went white. Something hot exploded under my sternum. I heard myself gasp, or try to. Air refused to come. Somewhere far away, submerged in static, Mom screamed my name. Aurora! Then another swing. The second blow knocked me sideways. I hit the dining room chair, then the floor, curled around the pain instinctively, even though curling made it worse. It felt like my entire chest was collapsing inward. I couldn't get air, couldn't speak, couldn't scream. The world narrowed to the violent, stabbing agony and the pressure crushing my lungs. Mom grabbed Lawrence's arm, shrieking, "Stop! Lawrence, stop! You're killing her!" He shoved her off, hard. She stumbled into the table, papers scattering everywhere. He raised the bat again. I tried to move. My body refused. My limbs felt far away, heavy, unresponsive. In the tunnel of pain, I thought, he's going to kill me. Then another voice. A voice that didn't belong in the house. Get away from her! Kennedy, my best friend, my almost sister, the person who had taught me how to plait my hair in 5th grade and who always knew when something was wrong before I said a word. She'd come by to return a study guide. The front door had been unlocked. She stood in the doorway, backpack on one shoulder, face white with horror as she took in the scene. Me on the ground, Mom shaking, Lawrence holding the bat. Her phone was already out. I'm calling 911, she shouted, voice trembling but loud. Lawrence froze. For the first time since picking up the bat, uncertainty flickered across his face. Aurora, Mom sobbed, dropping to her knees beside me. Sweetheart, oh God, breathe, try to breathe. I couldn't. There was no air, just fire and pressure and the metallic taste of blood rising in my mouth. Kennedy gave the dispatcher our address, her voice shaking but clear. She can't breathe. He hit her. Please hurry. Lawrence dropped the bat. It hit the floor with a dull, heavy thump. He took a step back, then another. Then he bolted out the back door like the coward he always was. Everything around me went muffled, like someone had stuffed cotton in my ears. I heard Mom crying. Kennedy shouting instructions from the phone. Sirens in the distance. My vision tunneled until all I could see was the pattern of the dining room light fixture blurring above me. I remember thinking, I can't die here. Not in front of the table where my father used to sit. Not because of this man. The paramedics arrived fast, a blur of Navy uniforms, latex gloves, rapid-fire questions. How many blows? Blunt force trauma? BP dropping. She's cyanotic. Someone pressed an oxygen mask to my face. Someone else lifted me onto a stretcher. When they moved me, white-hot pain tore through my chest. I screamed into the mask, the sound raw and jagged. Mom reached for my hand, but they pulled her back. Ma'am, we need space. The next few minutes were a blur of flashing lights, cold air, the ambulance's interior rocking as we sped to the ER. I remember one of those paramedics saying quietly, "She's lucky. Another hit could have crushed the lung completely." Lucky. Funny word. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room, drifting in and out of consciousness. My side was wrapped tightly. Tubes ran into my arms. Machines beeped in steady rhythms. Broken ribs, punctured lung, small hemothorax, emergency surgery. I pieced the information together from snippets of conversation floating through the room. Mom sat in a chair near the bed, shaking, her hands clutched together like broken birds. She looked up when I stirred. Aurora, sweetheart. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I never thought. I turned my head away. I couldn't look at her. It wasn't anger yet. It was something colder, something sharper. Mr. Harrison came later, along with Beverly. They looked grim. Aurora, he said, voice trembling. If I had known he was capable of violence, I would have frozen the account immediately. I'm so sorry. Can you lock it now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Already done, child, he said, the moment we heard. He squeezed my hand. He won't touch another cent. Lawrence was arrested at the scene. The deputies had arrived minutes after the ambulance. Kennedy had given her statement. So had Mom. His bail was set high. Mom paid it. That nearly hurt worse than the broken ribs. I didn't return home. Kennedy's parents, Robert and Christina, took one look at me, bandaged and pale, and opened their door without hesitation. "You're staying here as long as you need," Christina said, guiding me gently to their guest room. "You are safe now." Mrs. Brennan, my high school college advisor, visited me and held my hand while I cried. "This isn't your fault, Aurora," she said, "but you can fight this, and I know exactly who can help." That's how I met Victoria Chen. Victoria was small, sharp-featured, soft-spoken, and absolutely terrifying when she wanted to be. She specialized in financial exploitation and abuse cases. She listened to everything I said without interrupting once. When I finished, she folded her hands. "All right," she said. "Here's what we're going to do." She explained the criminal case, the civil case, the evidence, the timeline. She didn't sugarcoat anything, not even the part where my mother was legally culpable because she had authorized the withdrawals. "Diane may have been manipulated," Victoria said gently, "but she signed those forms. That means she is partially responsible. You need to be prepared for that." I nodded. "I know," I whispered. "What do you want, Aurora?" she asked. "Be clear." "I want my father's money back," I said, "and I want him to face consequences." Victoria smiled, a thin, dangerous smile. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." That night, lying in Kennedy's guest bed, I stared at the ceiling, my chest aching with every breath, and made myself a promise. If my mother won't protect me, then I will protect myself. I wasn't just fighting for the money. I was fighting for the girl my father hoped I'd grow up to be. And I wasn't losing her. Not to Lawrence, not to fear, not to anyone. Healing from broken ribs is slow. Slow in a way that forces you to confront every breath you take. But healing while preparing to take your own stepfather to court? That's something else entirely. Every day, my body hurt. Every night, my inbox beeped with new documents Victoria needed signed, new statements from Mr. Harrison, new questions about the timeline and paper trail. Pain became background noise. Purpose became oxygen. Victoria worked with a precision that terrified even me, and I was on her side. "We start with the civil case," she told me, arms folded as she paced Kennedy's living room. "It will be faster. And once the court sees the evidence, the assault case only gets stronger." She stacked the paperwork on the table. My notebook, copies of statements, screenshots, receipts. The Harley purchase circled in red. "This," she said, tapping the folder, "is going to bury him financially before he even steps into the criminal courtroom." I believed her. The civil hearing came first. It wasn't dramatic at the start. No jury, just a judge, a clerk, a stenographer, and 2 tables, one for us, one for Lawrence, and whatever lawyer he could afford. He came in looking smaller than I remembered. Not physically. He was still tall, still broad, but something in him had deflated, like he'd been punched repeatedly from the inside. Maybe life had started punching back. The judge called the case. Victoria stood and delivered a timeline so clean it was surgical. Dates, withdrawals, matching credit card spending, Lawrence's signature here, my mother's there, the Harley, the jewelry, the dinners, the vacations he'd taken alone while Mom stayed home. It felt like watching a magician peel back the curtain on a trick everyone already suspected was fake. Then came the testimony. Mr. Harrison took the stand first. His voice, steady but strained, described his repeated attempts to obtain documentation from my mother. His concern, his suspicion, his regret. "I should have invoked emergency protections the moment things seemed irregular," he said, turning his eyes toward me. "I failed to protect her on the financial end. I won't fail again." Next was Stephanie. She explained the credit card pattern with expert clarity, pointing out how each spike in Lawrence's spending aligned precisely with withdrawals from my trust. When she finished, even Lawrence's own lawyer didn't look convinced by his case. The judge reviewed everything in silence for several minutes. Then he ruled, full restitution of $38,000 to the plaintiff, plus interest and attorney fees. The defendant has 6 months to comply. Failure to do so will result in seizure of assets. Lawrence's head snapped up. 6 months? That's insane. Given that the funds were stolen from a minor, the judge said sharply, it is generous. He banged his gavel. That was the first time I saw fear on Lawrence's face. Real fear. The dominoes started falling immediately. His employer, a major medical equipment corporation, found out about the assault charge and the civil judgment. Their ethics policy was strict. Any employee involved in financial fraud or violent crime was terminated. He received the termination email while still parked in the courthouse lot. He couldn't find another job. Not a real one. Not one that paid anywhere near what he'd been making. That's when his ex-wife filed for increased child support. Family court was brutal. The judge looked at Lawrence's history: violence, fraud, a minor hospitalized under his hand, and increased his support obligation, calculating payments based on his previous income, not his current unemployment. You have 60 days to obtain employment comparable to your prior position, the judge said. Your child will not suffer because you made destructive choices. Tyler's mother requested full custody with no visitation rights, and she got it. Tyler didn't even cry. He looked relieved. He later wrote me a letter in small, neat handwriting. I'm sorry for what my dad did. I'm glad you're okay. I always wish someone would stop him. I kept that letter. Then came the criminal trial. That courtroom was dramatic. Kennedy testified first. She described walking into the dining room, seeing me on the floor, Lawrence with the bat, Mom sobbing. Her voice shook, but she never wavered. Paramedics testified next. They described my injuries in blunt clinical detail. 4 fractured ribs, a punctured lung, risk of cardiac tamponade. One more blow could have been fatal. The ER surgeon explained the surgery they'd performed to save my life. My mother testified too. She broke down on the stand, sobbing that it was a moment of stress and that he didn't mean to hurt her that badly, and he's a good man who made a terrible mistake. The courtroom froze. Victoria stood. Objection. Relevance. Sustained, the judge snapped. Stick to facts, Mrs. Mitchell. Facts were all we needed. The jury deliberated less than 4 hours. The verdict: guilty of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. During sentencing, the judge looked directly at Lawrence. You attacked a 17-year-old girl with a baseball bat because she confronted you about the theft of her inheritance. You stole from a child, and when she discovered the truth, you attempted to silence her with violence. You have shown no remorse. He sentenced Lawrence to 6 years in prison. There was no outburst from Lawrence. No apology. Just that same dead-eyed stare he'd given me in the dining room, only now tinted with dread. The fallout spread like cracks through glass. Mom and Lawrence had to sell the house. The equity went to paying legal fees, restitution, and debts. They moved into a tiny, peeling apartment in a bad part of town. Mom picked up more shifts at the dental office, then more, then too many. She started making mistakes at work. Small ones at first, then serious ones. The office manager eventually let her go, gently but firmly. It's not because of the scandal, Kennedy's mom whispered to me later, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. She's not functioning. She's breaking. Her family distanced themselves too. Aunt Patricia wouldn't take her calls. Grandma stopped inviting her to gatherings. Friends from church avoided her in the grocery store. In their eyes, she had chosen a violent thief over her own daughter. And in truth, she had. Meanwhile, my life began rebuilding in quiet, determined ways. Mr. Harrison helped restructure my college fund. Between what was restored and what had never been stolen, I had about $47,000 left. Not the full amount, but enough. Enough to honor my father. Enough to fight for myself. I was accepted into the state university I'd dreamed of since 9th grade. Kennedy and I moved into a dorm together freshman year. Her parents, Robert and Christina, drove us up, carried boxes, set up lamps, left me with a hug that felt like it came from a second family. I hope you know, Christina whispered, brushing my hair behind my ear. You are loved as if you were our own. My chest ached, not from the scars, but from something else. Something like healing. Mrs. Brennan still texts me sometimes, asking about my classes. Victoria became a mentor, encouraging me to consider law school. You have the fire for it, she says, and the experience. You can make sure this never happens to another kid. Every time she says it, something warm flares in my chest. By sophomore year, I found myself looking in the mirror one morning, tired, studying too late, hair in a messy bun, and thinking, this is the life Dad wanted for me. I made it here, despite everything. That realization didn't erase the pain. Trauma doesn't work like that. But it made the scars feel less like reminders of what happened and more like proof of what I survived. By the time I turned 20, my life had split into 2 timelines. One was the old one, the version where I was supposed to quietly graduate high school, go to college, maybe come home for the holidays and pretend everything was normal. The other was the one I lived instead. The one where I carried the memory of a baseball bat in my ribs, used court documents as armor, and rebuilt my life piece by piece from the ashes Lawrence and my mother left behind. And strangely, I wouldn't trade the second one for the first, because the girl I became afterward is someone my father would be proud of. Sophomore year of college, I joined a volunteer group that helps teens who've been financially exploited by their parents, not abused in the usual ways people think about. No bruises, no broken bones, but money stolen, trusts drained, inheritances siphoned off. The quiet kind of abuse. The kind no one talks about. The kind that leaves someone vulnerable for life if no one steps in. Victoria came with me to the first workshop, carrying her neat stack of printed materials and her calm attorney voice. She talked to the group about documentation, about guardianship, about what signatures really mean, about how to legally protect yourself. I talked about being 17, sitting at a dining room table covered in evidence, realizing the people I lived with were capable of betraying me in ways I'd never imagined. I didn't cry. I didn't dramatize anything. I just told the truth. Afterward, a girl approached me, 16, tiny, eyes too old for her face. My mom keeps emptying the account my grandma left me, she said. I didn't know I could fight that. You can, I said, and we'll help you. Moments like that made the past feel worth something. Meanwhile, the consequences for Lawrence and my mother kept unfolding. Prison didn't treat Lawrence well. Aunt Patricia has a friend who works at the correctional facility. She told me that after the sentencing, he tried to act tough. He tried to throw his weight around. It didn't last. Inmates don't respect someone who assaults a teenage girl over money. He got into fights, lost commissary privileges, was placed in solitary more than once. His health deteriorated, high blood pressure, ulcers, chronic insomnia. He filed for early release twice, denied both times. Every denial came with a note about lack of remorse. Of course he didn't have remorse. Monsters don't feel sorry for being monsters. They feel sorry when being one stops working. His family abandoned him. His parents, who originally defended him, eventually learned the full extent of what he'd done, especially the financial theft. They stopped accepting his calls, stopped sending money for commissary, stopped visiting. His brother, who worked in pharmaceutical sales, publicly distanced himself. No comment, he told reporters outside his home. We are not in contact. Lawrence's network, 15 years of professional relationships, evaporated overnight. No one wanted to be linked to him. My mother, her fall was quieter, but in some ways more tragic. After she lost her job at the dental office, she found part-time work at a small clinic across town. Fewer hours, lower pay, no benefits. She lived paycheck to paycheck in the rundown apartment she shared with Lawrence before his sentencing. Well, used to share. Now she lived alone. Her friends pulled away. Her sister wouldn't answer her calls. Grandma saw her for holidays but avoided talking about anything deeper than the weather. She was a ghost in her own life. Her therapist eventually told her she'd been in an emotionally abusive marriage, manipulated into making choices she never would have made on her own. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's an excuse. Both can exist at the same time. When I heard that she'd started therapy, a part of me hoped, quietly, very quietly, that she might finally understand what she'd done. That hope didn't last long, but something else did. Last month I got a letter. It was from her. The envelope was plain, no perfume, no attempt to make it look warm or nostalgic. Inside was a single page, handwritten, messy, uneven, tear-stained. She didn't ask for forgiveness this time. She didn't defend Lawrence. She didn't claim it was all a misunderstanding. Instead, she wrote, I finally understand what I did. Your therapist was right. You were abused, financially and physically, and I enabled it. I let someone hurt you because I was too afraid of being alone to protect my own daughter. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't expect you to respond. I just want you to know that I see it now. I see everything, and I am sorry. I read it twice, then a third time. Then I put it back into the envelope and set it at the bottom of my dresser drawer. I'm not ready to respond. Maybe I never will be. Trauma doesn't disappear when someone apologizes. Betrayal doesn't dissolve because the betrayer finally admits they were wrong. Healing is not a circle that closes. It is a path you keep walking. And I am walking mine. With people who actually deserve to walk beside me. Kennedy and I are closer than sisters now. Her parents treat me like a second daughter. Robert sits with me once a month to go over my finances, investments, scholarships, budgeting, making sure I am never again vulnerable to someone like Lawrence. Christina helps me through the nights when nightmares shake me awake. She brings warm tea. She sits on the edge of the bed. She reminds me the past doesn't get to own me. Kennedy's younger brother asks me for help with homework and crush advice. It's silly. It's wholesome. It's everything I thought family was supposed to feel like. Real family. Chosen family. And me? I'm studying healthcare administration. Maybe law school eventually. Victoria teases me that I'm already better at building cases than half the paralegals she works with. I have a future again. Not because of what was stolen from me, but because I fought to take it back. Because I refused to let a man with a bat decide how my life would unfold. Because I turned my father's last gift into something larger than money. I turned it into a mission, a promise, a legacy, one I carry forward every single day. Lawrence will be eligible for parole in 4 years. Victoria has already prepared the paperwork opposing his release. And I'll be there too, standing in front of that board, telling them exactly what he did, exactly what he stole, and exactly why the world is safer with him behind bars. Because justice isn't a one-time event. It's a decision you make again and again. To stand up, to speak up, to survive loudly. Sometimes people ask how I stayed so strong, how I kept fighting, even when it hurt. The truth is simple. I didn't survive because I was brave every moment. I survived because the moments I was brave were enough. So let me ask you the question that changed my life. What would you do if someone you trusted stole from you and then tried to destroy you to keep you silent? Would you walk away? Or would you fight? I know what I chose. And despite everything, the pain, the scars, the courtroom battles, the betrayal, I would choose it again. Because sometimes the only way forward is to make sure the people who broke you can never break anyone else.